Motherfucker! I've talked a lot about Sonic ever since I first started making content here online. I've done Let's Plays, live streams, song covers, and hell, even a couple other reviews of various Sonic games. So it goes without saying that I'm a pretty big Sonic fan. I grew up with the Blue Blur. I owned a Sega Genesis as a kid, and while I did own many other games for the console, I always found myself going back to Sonic. The speed, the music, the level design, the overall enjoyability of these games is what kept me coming back. And it's still what keeps me coming back even to this day. Sonic has, admittedly, had a pretty rocky career thus far, with plenty of ups and downs and all-arounds, yet through all of it, I always found myself coming back to this franchise for enjoyment, even through the worst of it. With Sonic's 25th anniversary rearing its spiky blue head just around the corner, I figured what better time than now is there to tackle some Sonic games, specifically the classic era. In this mini-marathon of sorts, I'll be tackling Sonic's 1, 2, 3 and Knuckles, and CD. I'll get to future games eventually, hell, I might even make this a yearly thing, but I'm jumping ahead of myself just a bit. Today, however, we're looking at the game that started it all, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 for the Sega Genesis. Now, before we actually begin, as per online video game reviewers' law, I'm obliged to give you the backstory you undoubtedly heard at least 1,000 times up to this point. I assure you though, I will be taking some liberties in order to keep things going at a reasonable speed. Get it? Speed? Anyway, during the early 80s, video gaming as we know it had just begun to become increasingly popular, and companies all across the country and various parts of the world were taking part in this cultural phenomenon. What ended up happening, however, is the market began to become incredibly overpopulated due to just how many companies were throwing their cards on the table, and interest in gaming as a whole sort of died out rather quickly. This led to what is commonly known now as the video game crash of 1983. Companies went bankrupt due to insane amounts of money lost, and the general public wanted nothing to do with gaming as it had just become too much to bear, and that's where Nintendo comes to play. In 1985, Nintendo decided to broaden their market after having already released the Nintendo Famicom in Japan in 1983 by releasing what we now know as the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES for short. In order to avoid backlash in the Western market, Nintendo avoided all usage of the term video game and actually marketed their console as more of a computer rather than a gaming system. With it saw the release of Super Mario Bros., the game that completely revolutionized the gaming scene and subsequent industry and brought forth much success to Nintendo, which allowed them to continue innovating for years and decades to come. Now, why am I telling you all of this when we're supposed to be looking at Sonic? Well, if it weren't for these events which led to the creation of Super Mario, we wouldn't have the Sonic franchise as we know it today. You see, with the popularity of the Super Mario franchise rose an urge to compete from various other companies, and none proved stronger than rival company Sega. In the early 90s, amidst all of Mario's success, Sega saw fit to create a mascot of their own that could rival Mario, and thus, Sonic was born. Releasing on their newest console at the time, the Sega Genesis, otherwise known as the Mega Drive in Japan, Sega ran an absolutely devastating smear campaign on Nintendo, claiming the Genesis does what Nintendo don't. And it worked. Sales soared for the company, and they finally had a proper mascot on their hands that could rival that of Nintendo's Super Mario. Now, I'm pretty sure we all know by now how things ended up turning out for both companies respectively, but what was it about the early Sonic games that not only made them so great, but made them such stiff competition to Nintendo? Well, let's not waste any more time and jump straight into this game's plot. As basic could be, the story to this game is simple. Dr. Robotnik, otherwise known as Dr. Eggman in Japan, is a mad scientist who's hell-bent on conquering the world. He attempts to do so by not only encapsulating Sonic's woodland friends into robots, but also by attempting to collect all of the 6 Chaos Emeralds. The Chaos Emeralds are these mystic gems that, when collected, grant whoever's obtained them with near unlimited power. You play as Sonic, an anthropomorphic blue hedgehog with super fast speed in your quest to stop the evil Doctor from achieving his evil plans. And that's pretty much it. Video games in general back in the day didn't often have incredibly deep and engaging plots, so it isn't all too surprising that the story for this game is rather simple. Besides, it's the gameplay that really matters, and I can say with certainty that where the story may come up short, the gameplay succeeds tremendously. This game is an action-based platformer, with the player taking control of Sonic as he makes his way through 6 separate zones, each with 3 stages apiece and a corresponding boss fight at the end of each zone. The game starts you off in Green Hill Zone, arguably the most iconic stage in all of Sonic history. Think of it like this game's World 1-1. The zone itself is meant to allow the player to get used to the game's controls. There's plenty of speed to be had here, as well as various alternate pathways in certain acts, which leads to a greater sense of exploration, an element which we'll be seeing throughout the game as a whole. Not much else can be said other than this is a great start and that it's a zone I always look forward to playing. Next, we have Marble Zone. A point of contention amongst most fans, Marble Zone actually strays pretty far from the design of Green Hill, favoring a much slower, more traditional platforming sense of design, which, in my opinion, actually serves to the benefit of not only the game, but also to the player. It teaches you that while speed is a major element of the game and the character, it's not the only element. And that's something I'd really like to stress here, because a lot of people get the idea that Sonic is only about speed and just going fast through everything. And so when games try to take things slower, people will lambast them for not being what Sonic's really about. Sonic has never been about just simply going fast, at least not in any of the games, that is. The series is mainly based on platformers for a reason, after all. Ranting aside, I do thoroughly enjoy Marble Zone, and I don't really find its placement to be all that insulting. Next up, we have Spring Yard Zone, a zone in which elements from Green Hill and Marble Zone are sort of merged together. This zone reintroduces speedy segments, while also having some slower and more methodical platforming segments as well. While not my favorite stage, it is still a great level and has a lot to offer regardless. Now we come to what is probably the most polarizing stage in the entire game. Labyrinth Zone. I'll go ahead and be upfront about it. I don't really like this level, or at least I never really find myself looking forward to it. This level, again, is very similar to Marble Zone, where it removes a lot of speed in exchange for a stronger focus on platforming, but I personally feel it does so in a way that's kind of detrimental to the game overall. This is a water level, and so, as per video game standards, your character moves significantly slower when submerged in water. And while yes, I understand that this is obviously true to real life, it's a fictional medium for a reason. Some liberties are allowed to be made, and in this case, I feel as though they're dearly necessary. The water in this stage causes you to move so damn slowly that it can become increasingly tiresome just trying to complete any one of the 3 acts. And then there's that dreaded drowning music. You see, unlike Mario, who's able to breathe underwater in most of his games, Sonic is unable to do so, and thus must rely on air bubbles in order to keep himself alive. Throughout any given stage, when you're underwater, you'll hear a dinging sound go off every few seconds. This is basically your air meter. After a certain amount of time, you'll begin getting dangerously close to losing all of your air, and when you do, this happens. Christ! That music honestly scared the crap out of me as a kid, and still does, in some sense, invoke an urge of panic even nowadays. It's so damn tense, and it really puts you on the edge of your seat. This theme, by the way, isn't going away anytime soon. It's in almost every major Sonic game that features underwater sections, so get used to it while you can. Next up, we have Starlight Zone, another rather speedy level of the bunch. This stage is actually one of my favorites, probably in the entire classic series. It's that fun to me. Everything from the aesthetic to the level design is just absolutely great to me, and it's always a zone I look forward to. Finally, we have Scrap Brain Zone, and oh boy, someone really turned up the digometer in here, didn't they? Scrap Brain is easily the most difficult stage in the game, and while I do personally still enjoy it, I find its ramping up in difficulty to be just a bit too steep, especially for more casual players. You are going to undoubtedly get hit and or die a lot in this stage, especially on your first try due to enemies, obstacles, and bottomless pits. If you do manage to make it through all of this though, Act 3 takes us back to Labyrinth Zone? What the fuck? Anyway, once you clear Act 3, it's finally on to Final Zone, where you obviously take on the final boss and save the day once and for all. Until the sequel, at least. Now, depending on how you went about clearing the game, you'll unlock one of 2 endings. Playing through the game normally will actually grant you the bad ending, where Robotnik's taking claim to either all, or just some, depending on how many you collected along the way, of the Chaos Emeralds. If you want the good ending, however, you're going to have to go out of your way to collect all 6 emeralds. Doing so grants you the good ending, where you make some more flowers appear. Oh, and the emeralds scatter DBZ style. Yeah, I get the feeling that's not the only Dragon Ball parallel we'll be seeing now, is it? Anyway, in order to actually obtain one of the 6 emeralds, you have to collect 50 rings throughout any given act and jump into this giant floating ring at the end in order to be transported to one of the 6 special stages. These stages place you in a maze that's constantly rotating, while you yourself are constantly in ball form. You can only move yourself slightly to the left or right and jump. You must navigate your way through the maze into the emerald at the end, which is always encased in these crystal things that you can break once by repeatedly rubbing yourself against them. This game's weird. Anyway, your obstacles in this stage include these bumpers, which knock you all over the place, these up and down buttons, which actually increase or decrease the speed in which the stage rotates depending on which button you press, a reverse button, which, as the name would imply, reverses the rotation of the stage, and the goal buttons, which, contrary to their name, will actually cause you to lose if you come in contact with them. Collecting the emeralds is easy enough, but is it really worth it? In my opinion, I don't really feel it is. You're given no real reward for doing so other than a slightly different ending that doesn't really mean anything in the end. In fact, considering you start the next game without actually having any of the emeralds, you can make the assumption that both endings are plausibly canon, disregarding the ending screen where Robotnik is shown to have obtained all the emeralds if he failed to do so. Speaking of Eggman, I should probably talk about this game's boss fights, considering I glossed over them in my level synopses. To put it simply, they're all pretty damn simple. Green Hill introduces us to the ball and chain boss, a concept which would go on to be featured in many future Sonic games in some shape or form. This particular fight is made especially easy given the fact the developers thought it necessary to include an invincibility capsule right before the fight itself, making the actual fight almost pointless. Even if you do somehow miss the invincibility monitor, which I'm sure most will do on their first attempt, the strategy is still basic enough so that it isn't a ridiculously challenging fight. He swings the ball left, then swings the ball right. Rinse and repeat until dead. I should also mention that every boss in this game, and most of the classic Sonic games in general, take 8 hits in order to kill them. While that may seem like a somewhat daunting number, especially when compared to most other platformers where the max number of hits needed in order to defeat a boss is usually 3, it can actually be fairly simple to do, specifically when excessive amounts of practice come into play as well. Marvel Zone's respective boss is also pretty simple. He shoots fire down at you, you jump to the other side to dodge, hit him when you can, rinse and repeat until dead. Springyard has a more somewhat difficult boss, which I think is good considering it is the midway point of the game after all. The strategy here is to wait for Robotnik to fly over you so that he drops down with his spike. Once he's descended, you can land an easy 3 to 4 hits on him if you're fast enough. Be careful though, because if you run out of platforms to stand on, well, you're fucked. The only real downside to this particular fight is that it can also be made pathetic with the use of this conveniently placed invincibility monitor right before the fight itself. I'm beginning to notice a pattern here. Did the developers really feel as though these particular fights were so challenging that you needed the additional help? If that's the case, then just simply make the boss patterns easier rather than giving the player a somewhat unfair advantage. I kind of understand it in Green Hill, you know, it's the first level and all, so it can't be too difficult, but we're halfway through the game by this point, so compromise has to be made somewhere. Ranting aside, you are able to just simply not pick up the invincibility, so I suppose it isn't that bad, but I felt as though it was still worth mentioning regardless. We move on to Labyrinth Zone, where, interestingly enough, we don't really have a boss fight per se, rather instead we have a chase sequence. The point here is to navigate your way up this small corridor while avoiding the obstacles that are thrown at you like spears, fire, and the rising water. No joke, this is the hardest, quote-unquote, boss fight in the entire game. So much shit is put in your way that this can oftentimes be the exact moment that sets players off the edge and causes them to game over. I know I certainly game over here plenty of times as a kid, and while now I find it to be much less challenging, especially when you just take your time, I still find myself dying here ever so often, so definitely be wary. Starlight Zone's boss is pretty simple once you get the hang of it, but can be slightly confusing to first-time players, I find. The strategy here is to either knock the bombs or yourself up at Robotnik using the seesaws, so that you're given enough height to actually hit him. Coincidentally enough, it's this boss fight in the god-awful GBA port of this game that I reviewed last year, cheap plug is cheap, that people bring up most often when referring to that game's horrendous screen crunch. Critics usually point to the fact that the game's screen crunch allows you to just simply jump and attack Robotnik easily, defeating the purpose of the original boss's design, and that such a thing isn't possible in the original game because it's actually coded properly. Thing is though, it actually is possible to just simply hit Robotnik by jumping in the original as well. And while it may not be nearly as easy to pull off, it is possible, so I guess that's a point up for Sonic Genesis? No, actually scratch that. Sonic Genesis deserves no up points. It's just a down point for the original instead. There we go. All is right with the world once again. Finally, we have Scrap Brain Zone, or should I say Final Zone, seeing as though Scrap Brain technically doesn't have a boss fight all to itself. The final boss of this game is fairly simple once you learn how to properly avoid the electrical attack the boss shoots at you after every phase. I find that just simply sticking to the far right of the screen most of the time is your safest option, as it's sometimes too unreliable to stand in either the center or to the far left. 8 hits later and that's it. You've conquered Sonic 1, and now you're rewarded with one of 2 of your kinda crappy endings that you worked so hard to get. Regardless that pretty much sums up the gameplay aspect of Sonic 1. Let's move on to the overall presentation. Honestly, I still think this game holds up tremendously well, both graphically and musically as well. The Genesis had a really bad reputation with overly twangy instruments, which made a lot of songs sound less than desirable, to say the least. While I personally enjoy the twang in most Genesis games, the classic Sonic games, for the most part, never actually had this issue. The classic Sonic games always had some of the most varied, interesting, and overall catchy music that Genesis hardware had ever put out. I love literally every theme in this game. I can instantly recognize and hum along to any theme in this game, and that alone goes to show, personally, how great I think this game's music is. Graphically, like I said before, I do think this game still holds up very well. While not as diverse as some of the later games in the classic era, this game has a very vibrant choice of colors and aesthetics as well, which help it tremendously stand out amongst the crowd of rather bleak and bland looking games that were released around the same time. While I'm not certain I can say this game as a whole holds up nearly as well as its successors, I do think it's still a fantastic game, and one that's certainly worth checking out if you're at all interested in this franchise. It's probably the most accessible game as well, so if you are interested, you shouldn't really have much trouble at all getting your hands on it by some means. With all that said though, I think that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on Sonic 1. It's a fantastic game with, in my opinion, only a few true minor flaws which hold it back from being perfect. Although, that's honestly to be expected, given the simple fact that no game is truly perfect, no matter how much nostalgic preference may tell you otherwise. Regardless, thank you all for watching, and as always, remember that I'm inconsistent as fuck.